Before the coffee break, we have one more presentation, Research Insights presentation. As I said, or wanted to get across earlier in the discussions, the importance of collecting data and information to reflectively assess and incorporate this in planning processes. This is a very important part of a planner's job. My former colleague, Timothy Heleniak, is going to join me in a moment to talk to you about this in terms of measuring urban sustainability in transition. So how do we measure and monitor and assess these processes taking place in a Nordic and even Arctic context? Timothy Heleniak is a senior research fellow at Nordregio, where he does policy-focused research on issues such as population change, migration, and regional development in both the Nordic context, the EU context, and internationally. He's worked previously at George Washington University, the World Bank, and UNICEF in the United States. So I'd like to welcome Timothy Heleniak, and you can give us an introduction and overview to the MUST project that you're currently involved in. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ryan. I'm going to exchange my big red Arctic coat for a nice sport jacket and give an overview of this project called Measuring Urban Sustainability in the Arctic. Of course, Nordregio has a long history of doing research in the Arctic, number of different projects, and this is natural. 6 of the 9 Arctic states are in the Nordic region. And I just show some examples here. It covers some of our publications. One called Polar Peoples, which I was in charge of, looking at population change in the Arctic. A very important project, I think, called Nunatarak, which combines natural scientists and social scientists looking at the impacts of permafrost thaw in the Arctic. And of course, the mapping that we do. We're known for doing mapping of the Nordic region, but certainly also the Arctic. A lot of our publications, you go to any Arctic conference, people are likely to have a Nordic or a map that Nordregio produced on the Arctic. I just want to highlight some characteristics of Arctic cities before I delve into this. I mean, Arctic cities tend to be, obviously by definition almost, located at high latitudes, harsh climatic conditions usually, a narrow economic base based on the extraction of one or a couple resources. And they're also located a long distance from urban centers in the cities and concentrations of economic activity. So the research questions we try to answer in this MUST project, one is how do we use indicators to measure urban sustainability? And what are the long-term trends in urban sustainability? And also, what can urban areas in the Arctic tell us about urban areas outside the Arctic? And then also vice versa. How can we use lessons outside the Arctic to inform us about sustainability issues and trends in the Arctic? And I must mention that this is funded in part by the U.S. National Science Foundation. And there's actually 2 projects I'm going to talk about briefly today. One is called, well, it's not PIRE, that's the type of project, but it's called Urban Sustainability in the Arctic. And this was very much an indicator project. We collected data for 46 cities, and you can see here the list up there, and also the map of where these different Arctic cities are located. And so what we did is we collected 128 indicators across 19 different domains. You can see the domains up there. And we actually, we use the ISO, Sustainable Cities and Communities methodology to collect this data. And it's easier said than done collecting these 128 indicators across the Arctic. The Arctic countries have quite different statistical systems, but you can see the results here. Those cities in black or dark green are those cities that came out as the most sustainable. No surprise, a lot of the Nordic cities ranked quite high on our sustainability measures. If you move into Western Russia and then across Siberia, the cities scored lower on the sustainability index. And then if you get into Alaska and the Canadian Arctic, the cities had the lowest scores. So this was a project, like I said, that was quite statistical, and then we developed this and applied for and got this funding for this project called MUST, Measuring Urban Sustainability in the Arctic. And what we try and do here is we try and combine elements of the natural systems, the social systems, and then also the built environment to look at kind of a holistic view of sustainability. We look at kind of the broad, if you look on the outside of the chart, kind of the broad global trends, to narrow it down to the Arctic regions, and then the Arctic cities. So we selected 5 case studies: Lulio in northern Sweden, Mar in the Nenets Okrug of West Siberia, Yakutsk in the middle of Siberia, Fairbanks in the state of Alaska in the United States, and Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories. And we chose these for a nice geographic spread, but also these cities are on different levels of different scores on our sustainability index. And I'm going to focus today on one city or one region. That's Lulio in northern Sweden. And there was a talk yesterday that people talked, I don't know if they're still here, about Mindig, this effort to attract talent to Norrbotten, which is very important because they have this effort, or this kind of what we call a regional mega project to really transform and create a green economy. It's something about a test case study, a lot of different industries there, and this chart shows the kind of industrial symbiosis that's going on. It's a rather complex loop, and what's attractive to this region, what attracts industries to this region is obviously the energy, the minerals, large amounts of land that are available. So our research goals for this case study in Lulio, we wanted to apply some of these measures to the development going on at Lulio. We wanted to understand this big mega project and how it worked, look at the cost and benefits, and also then look this other bullet of how this development is going to impact things like factors like housing, transport, infrastructure. We wanted to understand, is this another boom-bust cycle in the Arctic, or is this a project that's on the path to sustainable development, and then identify the best practices for other Arctic cities and regions. So the research methods, well, the map shows where Norrbotten is, I assume most people know. We conducted a number of different interviews of different people in the Lulio government, the Norrbotten government, and people who would have some say in this, but also people who would be impacted. We conducted a number of site visits to different different industrial sites in Lulio, around Lulio, and across the whole Norrbotten region. And this is the project team. It's composed of people from Sweden, Russia, Canada, the United States, and we consist of geographers like myself, economists, political scientists, architects, and also a few artists thrown in there. And I'm going to draw your attention to the 2 ladies in the middle. This is the woman on the left is Rebecca Alte, who's the mayor of Yellowknife, and she came to participate in this case study of Lulio, and the woman on the right is the mayor of Lulio. And at Nordregio, we have the mandate of doing policy applied research. We don't just do research and talk to other researchers. We try and reach out to policymakers. And a project funded by the U.S. National Science Foundation is somewhat similar. It's that you have to address the intellectual merits of your project, the scientific, but also the broader impacts. What are the benefits to society going to be? And so these two women met and exchanged ideas. They met again last month at the Arctic Circle Assembly at an Arctic Mayors Forum that we put together. The mayor of Lulio is going to come with us for the case study next summer to Yellowknife, and the mayor of Fairbanks is also interested in joining. So it's very much an exchange of information and ideas across the Arctic. So this is just some examples of what makes this region so attractive and why it might be a good case study for the green transition. This shows some of the wind turbines at different places in the region. Of course, a lot of the large use of hydroelectric power, the dams coming out of the mountain, the rivers coming out of the mountain and dams being built like this one in Boden, or yeah, I guess this is actually in Boden. This green transition in Norrbotten, of course, is going to be a challenge. It was mentioned yesterday that this is going to require rather enormous investments, but the region is acting as something of a pioneering region within Sweden for how to go about this green transition. And of course, there's not universal agreement as to the development path. This is some pictures taken at the Sami Museum in Jokkmokk. They very conveniently, the day we were there, scheduled a protest. They were protesting a proposed mine nearby. And so there's differences between a kind of weak and strong sustainability, and the Sami groups. I mean, they've been kind of, mines have been built across some of their traditional grazing territories for quite some time. Of course, part of the reason that companies are attracted to this, obviously the stable, strong connectivity, stable energy grid. The mayor of Yellowknife was very impressed that there hasn't been a power outage in Norrbotten or Lulio for 40 years, and she said the day before I left there were 6 power outages in Yellowknife alone, so quite a different system. This is the Facebook data storage facility. There's quite a few of these. First one built about 10 years ago. This is as close as you can get. You can look at the Facebook storage facility, but you are not allowed to go into it or anywhere near it. One of the factors that was cited as a good precondition for this green transition is the linkages between the university, the government, and then this Lulio business park. Lulio Technical University has strong linkages and is very supportive of this whole endeavor. But like I said, I do a lot of work on population issues, population change. This shows kind of the population trend in Norrbotten over the last 30 or 40 years. And the population peaked in '94, about the time a military base closed down. It's been slowly declining since then. It's an aging population. There's more deaths than births. You can see the blue line shows the kind of wild swing. But in order for this project, this green transition to work, they need to attract another 100,000 people. And this was mentioned yesterday. The bullet at the bottom shows that in Norrbotten, there's been a rather persistent outmigration from Norrbotten to the rest of Sweden, whereas at the same time they gain people from abroad. So, they're not going to grow these people. They're going to have to attract these people to the region. This was, like I said, mentioned yesterday in the mine dig project. Likewise, places like Lulio, population now of about 79,000, and they project or have a target of reaching 100,000. So this is adding another 20,000 people over the next 10 or 15 years. And then if you can see the map from Nordregio at the top, and this is a trend we're seeing across the Arctic, across periphery. This kind of migration into the larger settlements out of the smaller settlements. So it's going to be a challenge. And like I said, this was mentioned a bit yesterday. They have to attract new workers, expand infrastructure, build new housing. And this is an example of one of the new districts that's going in, Kronen. So this is, I think, going to supply housing for 2,000 or 3,000 people. But like I said, they anticipate, or the target is to add another 20,000. So this is going to have to be done rather continuously. So to conclude, Sweden's Arctic regions, these are very attractive to Sweden and the EU, so this development is likely to continue. This successful green transition in Norrbotten could potentially reduce Sweden's green gas house emissions by 10%, which is huge. So if every region contributed that much, I mean, if Norrbotten succeeds, Sweden succeeds in reaching some of its climate goals. I showed before the Lulio ranks high already on the sustainability index, so it's kind of well positioned to make this green transition, but it's going to be challenging in terms of investment, human capital, et cetera. You can read more at the project's website about the project. Like I said, we have various articles coming out, and then we'll continue on with the project, going to Yellowknife next year. And then I want to finish with one last picture here. So like I said, I went to Lulio twice this year on 2 different projects, and on one of the projects I was able to bring my daughter along. She's very interested in math and science, and so I introduced her to Lulio Technical University. I said, it was kind of a subliminal message I was sending. Maybe this would be a good place to go to college. But like I said, one of the broader impacts of this project is to train the next generation of Arctic sustainability scientists, so I think I fulfilled that. And I'm stopping right at 15 minutes. Okay.
Thank you very much, Tim. I have 5 or 6 questions, but I've learned to not get between an audience and their coffee. So I will just ask quickly if there are any questions to Tim's presentation now. Otherwise, we're, I think, just a couple of minutes behind for coffee. So we'll go for coffee for 20 minutes or so, and then meet back in here for the Nordic tour of solutions to some of these challenges and opportunities that we have talked about so far in our Research Insights talk. So thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you.
Thanks to all the presentations this morning. See you in 20 minutes back here.